everyone, welcome to September 16th Chapel. I'm out in the woods right here at Veritas checking some cool things out. You've probably been out here at least once. There's lots of neat things out here to see, like those boxes. If you thought, wow, that's a pretty big birdhouse, well, you'd be right. Those are actually birdhouses for a big bird. They're owl boxes. We're hoping that owls will come to this forest and live here. It'd be super sweet. I hope that maybe we'll see a barred owl, maybe a screech owl, maybe a barn owl. It could be any one of those. Great horned owl, possible, but they're pretty big. I don't know if they'll fit in there. There's about 4 of them around the woods. I wonder if you can find all 4, maybe even 5. I'm gonna go check it out and see if I can find them. Now, go to Mrs. Reed for some repeating back of our Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5 verses.
So during our chapel times, we're going to be looking and memorizing together as the year goes on, Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. I'm going to read those together and then we're going to share them together as well. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given for us. So let's look at just the first part of that today. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. So let's practice memorizing together. I'll say a part and then you repeat after me. You ready? Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings. Good. Knowing that sufferings produce endurance. Well done. Now you can keep working on this and we'll be taking a look at it a little bit every week as we go through. I look forward to
So, when I was out in the woods this morning, I didn't find 5 of those boxes for the owls. I found 6. Pretty cool, huh? Now, I hope you like those pictures of the different kinds of owls we have in West North Carolina. It'll be pretty fun to see them. I mostly hear them. Maybe we can talk about how they hear or what sound they make some other time. But right now, it's time for the Creature Feature. Today's creature is going to help you and I know more about determination, and especially know how to take a seemingly impossible task and break it down into smaller, achievable goals. Take the big goal and make it into small goals so you can be determined all the way through to accomplish really big things. We're going to talk about a different bird than an owl. We're going to talk about a bird called the Arctic tern. Arctic tern, like turn a car, turn a wheel. Arctic, like the cold place at the top of the globe. The Arctic is where the terns start their life, but it's not where they finish it. And they go places in between. You're gonna be amazed about how far an Arctic tern really does fly. You know, I thought maybe I would share what I learned right out of this book about Arctic terns. It was so good and so interesting, I just thought I'd read it right from the book. Here you go. In the autumn, the tern leaves its nesting grounds in the Arctic Circle, near the North Pole, and begins its journey to the opposite end of the Earth. That's the South Pole. Each year it covers a distance of 22,000 miles in its migratory flight. 22,000 miles? That's like going back and forth across the United States like 5 or 6 times. Considering all the side trips for food and other purposes, the actual number of miles that it flies is undoubtedly greater than this. I even saw one place that said they thought it might be as high as 69,000 miles in a year. I don't even know how far that is. That just blows my mind. On its flight to the Antarctic Ocean near the South Pole, the Arctic tern will choose one of 2 routes. It either flies along the western coast of Alaska, Canada, the United States, and Central and South America, or it chooses the alternate route along the western coasts of Europe and Africa. These flight courses are chosen because they include food-bearing currents. You know, like Chick-fil-A just floating in the ocean. Ha! No. They eat minnows, tiny little fish. They fly down and they scoop up the fish and they try to stay out of the water as much as possible. They just want to grab that food and keep on moving. By the time the tern reaches the Antarctic, snow has begun to melt with the approach of spring. A few short months later, the tern begins its long journey home. When it returns to its breeding grounds near the North Pole, it has literally flown around the world. To accomplish such a feat, the Arctic tern clearly demonstrates a significant matter of determination. The tern completes the seemingly impossible task by concentrating on smaller, achievable goals. Each day, it covers approximately 150 miles, and by doing so, flies around the world in just 20 weeks. That is incredible! Talk about determination. Talk about somebody that if the tern wants to finish what it started, it'll have to break that big goal down into little ones. Hey, this is a neat thing I learned about terns. Because they live in the Arctic and the Antarctic, and times of the year they do, they practically are living in parts of the world where it's sunlight most of the time. They almost never see nighttime. That's kind of crazy. Anyway, determination is out there in God's creation. I hope that I can learn something from the Arctic tern about it, and I hope you can too. Let's move on to the next thing. Welcome to the basement of my house, and we're going to get to take some time now to look at a character who teaches us about character. Today's character is right from the Bible. And remember, the character trait that we're working on right now is determination. And I like to think of it as deciding it's worth it to finish what you've started. And today we're looking at how it is that if you really want to be determined, sometimes you're going to have to take what is a seemingly impossible task, something really big to do, and break it down into smaller, achievable goals. Take the big goal and make it a bunch of little goals. That'll help you with your determination. Well, Joshua can help us learn some more about how to do that. So here's a little backstory about Joshua. Okay, he is one of the Israelites who escaped Egypt when Moses came through with God's plan to rescue the Israelites. He also became very important to Moses very early on. I know that because in Exodus chapter 17 we see that Joshua is a general of the army when they're fighting these people called the Amalekites. And Joshua is there leading them when Moses is holding his hand up high with help, and they're defeating the Amalekites, and Joshua's out there in a battlefield, so he's already a trusted leader. Later on, not too long later, Joshua is one of the 12 people chosen to go into the promised land and spy on the promised land. And you may know the story. When they're in promised land, they see that it's a great place, but most of them are really scared about who lives there. They're really big, they're really tough, and they have big cities that are really big and tough. The task of going in and taking the promised land from them seems too impossible. Well, not for Joshua and his friend Caleb. They trusted God. They knew God could help them do it anyway. They were determined to go in there right then. But it didn't work out. And you may know that at this point, the Israelites have to wander around the desert for almost 40 years before they get another chance at going into the promised land. Well, the next thing you need to know about Joshua is that by the time they get another chance to go to the promised land, Moses has gone on to be with the Lord, and Joshua is now in charge of the whole nation. Joshua has learned a thing or two over this time. How long? Well, 40 years, right? About how to take a big, huge, impossible task and still be determined to finish what you started with, these big things, by breaking it down into small pieces. Take it for example how he handles going into the promised land. They cross the Jordan River, and the first thing they've got to do is get past Jericho. Instead of how it was when they sent the 12 spies in way back, when Moses sent the 12 spies, where they sent 12 in, and they looked at the whole land, and they spent a bunch of time looking at the big project of going to the promised land. Joshua just sends 2 spies just to check out Jericho and to be sneaky about it, and to come back and tell them just the facts. He just focuses on the next task, the next little goal of the big goal of getting the promised land. Well, it works, and Jericho does fall, and then the next city falls, and then the next city falls, and then eventually the promised land, it belongs to the Israelites. And after a long time, really by this time Joshua is 85 years old. He might have been as young as 30 when they spied on the promised land the first time. 85 years old, the big task of conquesting the promised land has finally been realized, and now Joshua is there. Wow, talk about being determined to see something finished. It could have been like 50 years he was working on that job. Whoa, he knew how to be determined to take a big thing and break it into small things so he could finish what he started. That is determination. Big time. Well, I hope that you and I can learn something about determination from how Joshua handled his situation. Here's a couple things to take note of, though. Joshua was able to do this, to be determined, because of a couple really important things. One, he was willing to learn from mistakes that were made and make it better the next time. And second, here's a big one. He trusted God no matter what. He knew that God could help him with the big task, the seemingly impossible things, and also help him do the smaller, less seemingly impossible things. That he knew he could be determined to see something through because God was going to help him with each step along the way to the bigger goal. If you and I can do those things, wow, I bet you we can have the character trait of determination too. So, this week, give it a shot. Take a look around, just even in your classroom. Is there something, a big task you got to work on? Break it down into small pieces. I bet your teachers are already helping you with this. Maybe your parents are helping you out with something that they're trying to teach you that seems impossible to do. Break it down into small pieces. Oh, and hey, guess what? In PE, when we do Jog the State, we're going to take that big task of jogging virtually across the state and break it down into small pieces. That'll come out more later. But for now, let's head on to the next part of our chapel time. Okay, so the next thing in chapel is just this one more thing. While we're doing chapels this year, we're talking about growing character. Character that is good character. And determination is one of those things that's part of good character. Well, It's interesting to note that growing good character or getting good character or becoming somebody who is thought of as having good character will take a long time. Sorry, there's no short way to it. You and I will have to be put in some challenging situations so that we can actually grow the character. And then it'll have to be tested. And that can only happen over a long period of time. You know, in some ways, it's just like what we're talking about today with these seemingly impossible tasks that are just so big and so huge. You're like, how are you ever going to do it? Well, do it like we talked about today. Break it into small pieces. Work on character this week. Work on determination this week. And you'll see later on down the road, it was worth it because you'll have good character. All right, that's it. That's it for chapel. Well, at least this part of chapel. Now, you'll do some stuff there in your room, I bet. Next week, we'll be back here again with another chapel time on the video. See you later.